Fanspeak, where the plan runs deep. The team grind hard, don't eat, don't sleep. From best ball dreams to DFS streaks, they help you print money every single week. Fanspeak. No cap, no gimmicks, we breaking limits. NFL bets, yeah, we live this business. Meg and Steve, that OG vision. Draft room killers on a lifelong mission. More stress to the Sunday spread. Fanspeak's that voice that's inside your head. Best ball, DFS, NFL bets. They built it brick by brick, no regrets. Fanspeak. Fanspeak team, printing money since day one. Fanspeak, forever.
Welcome back to another Best Ball Lunch Break, Talking Ball Steve this week, a more Memorial Day edition. Hope everyone is having a nice holiday weekend. And of course, remembering the reason why we have Memorial Day, all those soldiers who've given their lives, anyone who's been touched by that, whether it's somebody you served with, a family member, a friend, this is a day to obviously remember, but it's also a day that, everyone's, well, here it's raining, but everyone is cooking out and enjoying the weather. It's like the kickoff to summer. And with that, it's best ball summer. So let's do some best ball as well. We will get into it in a second. Looking to do at least 2 drafts today. We'll see. Maybe I can do a little bit more. I'm probably going to start with the Pitbull and then do some Superflex draft, either a Frenchie Superflex. I haven't done either mine yet, or the Field General. Obviously, that is a flagship contest. So we will get to it in a second. I'll hit up chat, but let's just take a look at where we're at. Best Ball Streets on Underdog. BBM is sitting at 10%. I think my guess is more and more people are understanding you should wait to really push entries, and with Underdog releasing so many contests, I think that makes sense. The Frenchie 3 is now sitting at a little over 50%, 51%. I've not done mine 2 yet. The first Frenchie, or the Frenchie 3 regular, did fill much faster, but I like them having multiple Superflex contests out at once. The Dachshund, it's starting to creep up there, about 75% filled. I'm long filled mine, so I know there's people who are waiting, so I'm guessing that could close quickly. Of course, we have the Field General, the kind of flagship Superflex contest. It's about 55% filled right now. $3, 150 max. I still have a long ways to go and planning on maxing this, so I was kind of waiting, after the schedule, let some things settle down. So I need to start pushing a bit more. And then, of course, you have the Eliminator Weekly winners and Big Dog as well. But what we're going to start with is the Pitbull. This, talked about it before. This is my favorite contest structure. I'm a little surprised with we haven't seen this fill quicker. Just given, to me, it's a similar price point to BVM, and obviously way better advance rates at 106, 105, and then 56 person seat final. It's a little over 0.25% filled. We will get one in today. But before I do, let me hit up chat first. Say hi to everyone. We got our guy Mike Robin here. Always good to see you. We got C Money in here, GM. Aiden, happy Memorial Day, everyone. Absolutely. We got Meg checking in. Got Money to Think. We got Nap God. Good to see you guys. Light Blue Steve, yes. I was hoping UNC Blue Blood would jump in. No, I think Meg's mentioned I'm not like a big UNC fan, but we have cousins who are huge UNC fans, so I'll root for them. Field General, yeah, that's what I'll probably do after the Pitbull. I got DJ Quill in here. What's up, Steve? Happy Memorial Day. Yeah, DJ Quill was on again with Suheem. Suheem said a long stream yesterday. Jumped in chat. Jumped in chats with Quill. When Quill was on, always good hearing her thoughts. She's very sharp drafter. Of course, crushed in the drafter streets last year. But, I think, I've always been impressed with her in comments. And then when I've seen her on, like Kareem's has had her on now a couple times, just very, very sharp with the way that she approaches things. And always good to get her thoughts. And we were in lockstep with a number of points yesterday with certain players and stuff. We got Hartman checking in. Good to see you. Fantasy Dog Bayou Bengal raid. Yes, Bayou Bengal's doing a long stream. So good to see you guys coming over from Bayou's channel, and obviously, check him out for sure. Those of you can see, just did my last Frenchie Superflex. These contests are fun. Like they've had the docs in the last couple of years, and while I generally don't like contests that you don't get paid for making the playoffs, that's one where I think it's okay because the price isn't too prohibitive. Even making one to semifinals is like 3/4 of the money, and then of course you make it to finals and you get way above your money. So, I think they do that one pretty well. But that's not something I would like for probably even a 20 max or a 50 max, or of course like a 150 max. Like I would not want to only get paid to make semifinals, or at a much higher price point. We got Fancy Dog. Good to see you, number 6. Perfectly cromulent. Happy drafting to everyone. Absolutely. Aiden, I've heard some have the Bijan Gibbs ranked above even Allen in Superflex just because the edge the top running backs have. I guess so. I do think, and this is kind of the debate, the Chase versus the running backs, kind of the prompt of the day is like, should Chase go higher? Because well, the running backs will almost surely outscore them. Whoever RB1 is and probably RB2 will outscore wide receiver 1. I think the argument is does Chase just have a bigger gap to be wide receiver 1 this year than anyone else? And I think you could make that case. I think that's the question here. I've talked before about my, just concerns with Puka, between Devontae Adams, between, Matt Stafford having to have just, another just MVP career year again. And honestly, some of Puka's own issues are a factor as well. And then it goes for every other top receiver. Like there's a question mark with every other first round and even second round receiver, either questionable offenses or quarterback play, or they just have multiple options. And a guy like Amon-Ra has been so consistent being wide receiver 3, but it's like, oh boy, if the touchdowns shift even slightly to Laporta or JMO or Tesla, and just a combo, and Amon-Ra has 8 touchdowns for 13 or 12, he's not going to be wide receiver 3. So does Chase just have a greater percentage and chance of being wide receiver 1? And yes, you're potentially conceding points, but also if Gibbs or Bijan are not running back 1 or 2, then maybe Chase could actually outscore them. I will say I think it's more likely that and not just because like the last couple of years we've seen it, CMC ended up above Jonathan Taylor, but obviously Jonathan Taylor was the stud RB last year. The year before, Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry close to behind him. I think it's more likely a second round running back versus a second round receiver ends up as, RB1 versus wide receiver 1. And so I just think there's more options for a running back to finish running back 1. That being said, the raw touches, particularly in a good offense, like touchdown upside that these running backs have versus receivers is just way higher. And that's why they're going to score more points. So I view it, if you do take Chase as the 101, or honestly at 103, what I'm viewing more is wide receiver. If you're taking one in the first round, I really like it from an anchor wide receiver standpoint, where it's like taking Chase and then coming back and hitting, obviously Henry for the correlation, or Chase Brown for the, just the team correlation. third round, like a Josh Jacobs or an A-Chain or Travis A-Chain or Kyron Williams, and then you can maybe pivot back to wide receiver in the fourth round. But I don't think I'm going to like taking receiver first if you're then spending your next couple of picks at receiver as well, just because I feel like now you've conceded too many points is the way I look at it. So let me hit up finishing chat and then we will get into a draft. But I thought that was a good time given the prompt to talk about that. Appreciate the comment, Aiden. I still think Josh Allen is in Superflex, should be the 101. We got Bukowski in here. Good to see you. FK Coolers, happy Memorial Day all. Bayou, good seeing you, Bayou. I appreciate the Bayou Bengal raid. Like I said, I know you're doing a long stream today. Always great jumping on your streams, checking in, seeing how things are going. Hope you're doing well. We got Mike in here. What up, people? Happy Memorial America. Yeah, no, absolutely. Bayou the Twerking Tiger. Yes, I saw that. Disbanded by a Bengal raid. Absolutely. Devin, good to see you. Bayou raid, obviously. And yes, please check out Bayou's channel for sure. Of course, Quill. Truly did really enjoy hearing your takes on who he streamed yesterday. I see you, friend. Yes, no, DJ Quill's awesome. Bayou Ray, good to see you. Hellion. When was the last time ADP number one pick or even number two? No, I think this is a fair question. And one thing that I've pointed to, I do want to actually look this up more, but everyone talks about like why people knock like CMC this year is running backs don't finish back-to-back, running back one, in back-to-back years. Neither do receivers. I'd have to go back and look when the last time a receiver's gone back-to-back. And, that's honestly the other knock against Puka is, history says you're not going to do it twice in a row. So I think that is a very, and to this point also, like the ADP finishing where we're taking them. It's not, I don't think there's a great track record to be quite honest. So I think that is something to always keep in mind. Fancy Dog by Raid, yeah. My Nova Scotian friend. Oh, nice. Didn't realize you're from Nova Scotia. Say what? Allen not number one? No, I think Allen in Superflex has to be number one. I really do. The Twerking Tiger bothers me. Well, I know who he started it with the owl. I don't like receiver first because I can get CD in the third. In Superflex, yeah. Yeah, I was talking more in general, but yeah. We got Al Boog in here. Good to see you. Yeah, Jerry Rice might have been the last one to go back to back. I think you make a strong case why Chase should go after the big four. Yeah, Arena ahead of Lamar. Yeah, I was more talking in general. I think Chase is the one receiver I'd take in the first round of Superflex drafts. For sure. I think I'd still have Lamar above him and probably a couple other quarterbacks. But yeah. Yes, no, this is true. Like and this is the difference between like a drafters or a marathon. I still think the best approach is to look at, and it can be pockets like, a guy finishing, Jonathan Taylor last year was still a great pick. Like nobody can argue that. Like he was just usable weeks at the end, like 12, 15 point weeks versus the 25, 30 point weeks he was crushing earlier in the year. But I think to me, like both points per game and total points are great indicators of was this a valuable pick? Because to me, the other issue with it is like we cannot predict when the spike weeks occur. We obviously try, but we can't. We of course want them mostly to be in the playoff weeks. But I'm not gonna knock a guy because those 3 weeks he just didn't have his best 3 games. Like To me, if you're finding a guy who's just consistently having good, great, elite weeks, that was a good pick. And then you just got to hope it's hitting at the right time. All things being equal, that's all it will really come down to. Yeah, I mean, from a final result, for sure. I guess I look at it like we want those, of course, but results matter, results are money. But in terms of like, I want to know that I'm making good picks and not just getting, lucky from, getting bailed out on a spike week at the right time or something like that. I want good picks. And, because to me, I think if year in, year out, I have good process in making good picks, I think that's going to pay off for me. Is it going to pay off every year? Of course not. But I think long term, that's the best way to success. We got Peanut in here, disbanded. JT, good to see you. Gunner, what is happening? We were in a Pitbull. Yep, we are going to get into a Pitbull. Aaron, Sandy, also good to see everyone. So I'm going to count it down here. Let's get in this Pitbull. Aaron in 10 seconds. Aaron in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter. Yep, we are in. Wayne on 3. All right, we are filled. Let's see what we get. All right, we got Gunner at the 3. I'm at the 9. Peanut Punch at the 11. Let me know. I recognize a lot of names, but let me know if anyone else is in here. The money team, that's not money in a thing, is it? I can't remember your name, your screen name. So, yeah, let me know if anyone else got in. So this is why in my rankings I still Chase at 3. I don't have him above the top 2, but I do think the top 3 are kind of its own tier. Then I think you could make a case Jonathan Taylor is the closest one to belong in that tier, and that's why I have such a high percentage of them. That's why I'm just lower in Puka, versus Amon-Ra and JSN and Jefferson. I think that's a very flat group, to be honest. And all great players. Absolutely. It's not a knock whether they're great or not. It's just, is there a separator between those 4? And I honestly don't know if there is. Appreciate that, Gunner. All right, coming up here. Looking like I'm going to probably get one of these receivers, maybe CMC. And I'm kind of fine with whatever. So CMC goes. So I'll pretty much be down between Amon-Ra and Jefferson. I think both are excellent options. I think for me, I'll just use the tiebreaker of I think the Lions are going to have better offense. But like I said, 3 straight years of 10 plus touchdowns, I'd love for that to continue. It just feels not less likely, but it's just a bit more fragile. Just given his just natural profile, though he is excellent in the red zone. Like Amon-Ra, Amon-Ra gets to the red zone, he plays like Devontae Adams, It just gets open so easily. I think number 3 is the best place to draft this year so far. At least you either get a small fall on the top 2 running backs, you're guaranteed Chase, then tier break. I agree. Like top 3 pick feels really good. I think those 3 guys feel, just so locked in to those roles or those spots. So Walker, Hampton, Henry, I have the biggest percentage of Henry just because, I think he is the safest of these 3. But I think I can go any which direction here. No, I've not updated my rankings on this. I thought I did. So I definitely don't have Rice anymore in the top 20. I bumped him down considerably, but my bad for not getting my latest rankings up. Go to the board. Gunner, I'm headed on a fishing trip this weekend for 8 days, but when I get back, I'll be ripping even more. Nice. 48 Superflex left before I leave. Steve, are there any picks in round 1 this year who you think shouldn't be going in round 1? Last season is BTJ and Genty for me, but this season, I think all round 1 seem fine. Yeah, I mean, I kind of tend to agree. I guess what I'd say is this, like 10 through at least 14, because I do think Cook, Genty, you can make a case that they should be higher. A-Chain, obviously, given his track record. Lamb is the one who I have just the biggest worry, just because I do think, and not that he's not a great receiver, but just I think Pickens showed a lot, and Ferguson's a good option. Flournoy seemed to be coming on. Javonte, like they just now have a lot of offensive pieces, and it's kind of similar to Amon-Ra. It's just we've seen a more consistent level from Amon-Ra. So no, I nobody to me is a guy who would fall out. I mean, of those, even though he's been so great, I think just from an offensive standpoint, Devon A-Chain, I do worry the losing of Mike McDaniel. I do worry, just honestly, like losing Waddle probably actually hurts him. Waddle was a great clear out option. You had to respect Waddle's deep speed. Them not having a real quality receiving core. I mean, just the weapons in Miami have just gone down so drastically over the last couple of years, from having Tyreek and Waddle, and even 2 years ago when, both Tyreek and Waddle were missing a little bit of time, Jonnu really emerged. And even last year, Waller emerged for a bit when Tyreek went down. It's just, they are just at the bottom of the barrel in terms of offensive skill weapons outside of him. And, Malik Willis also could just run a little bit more and impact him in that way as well. But he'd kind of be the only one. And it's not like I think he should fall massively. It's just, is he much more like a mid-second rounder? But that's like the only kind of concern. I am going to max the field general. Yeah. I'm going to throw some more slows in. I've had some ending, finishing up. So I'm going to throw some more. Obviously going to be doing plenty on stream as well. So I will say, to Gunner's point here is, let me make this pick first so I don't totally screw up. I'm just going to be way over on Kyron this year. I'm fine if I'm like 15, 16%. Just this level of consistency, this level of quality offense. And another guy where if Stafford has some negative touchdown regression, instead of throwing 46 touchdowns, he throws 36, 38. guess who's the biggest beneficiary? That's going to be Kyren. So it's like Kyren could lead the league in rushing touchdowns this year. I'll do it for Meg. She sent me videos of Cam Scattaboo saying he's almost ready at camp or whatever. I don't even know. but why not? Feels really good. 3 different buys. Amon-Ra is like the anchor receiver. This is kind of what I talked about. Like, take Amon-Ra as the anchor. This is still, to me, a very elite running back room. Obviously going to look to pivot back to receiver in these coming rounds. But yeah, so the JSN thing, and I always forget off the top of my head, but he had like a 36% target share. And generally speaking, guys can consistently hit 30% target share. I mean, Chase, I know has done that multiple times, but much above that becomes questionable to consistently hit year in, year out. And yeah, JSN would obviously be one of the ones who is most at risk at seeing a regression in target share, especially with Shaheed fully integrated in the offense, Cooper Kupp still there, AJ Barner being a solid tight end, and even Torrey Horton his second year and healthy because he was banged up down the stretch. What I will say is I think Seattle's going to throw the ball a lot more this year. So JSN could go to like a 29-30% target share, which seems like a significant drop, but his targets might be fairly flat because I could easily see Seattle throwing the ball 100 more times. One, the lack of the running game, and also the targets that Walker was getting are probably not all going to be going to like the George Falanis and Janarian Prices. So, so in terms of spreading it out, like some of it, I just think running backs are going to just take a much less share. But I also think they're going to run the ball less this year. And, I've said this before, like on paper, I'm just not as worried with the Seattle defense. Obviously, they're extremely well coached. They still have some elite guys on there, but they lost a lot in their secondary. They lost one of their top pass rushers and didn't do a ton to replace them. So I could just see them taking a step back. Not saying they're going to be a bottom defense, but if they are the 8th best defense or the 12th best defense, still very good, but might not be able to shut down teams, particularly the good offenses that they play within their own division and their tougher schedule this year. So I just think Seattle could have to throw the ball more. And honestly, people knock Darnold. Like when Darnold had to throw, he was good, or when they turn him on in the first half, like that game against Washington when he had 4 touchdowns at halftime. I mean, Darnold could have had a 50-point game. I mean, he could have thrown 7 touchdowns that game. He just didn't have to because Washington had 0 pushback. But early in the year when Tampa actually, had an efficient offense running and that was a shootout game, Darnold had a really good game. That game, and it was overtime, but that game, end of the year, the Puka big game, Darnold had a really good game himself. So when Darnold was pushed, he played well. And, I could see that being the case, like them just having to throw the ball more. So that's like the positive side for JSN, but I do agree, like I don't think he can sustain the same target share. Nice, yeah. No, and that's why I was kind of saying, like, I think that wide receiver group is a flat tier because I could make the case for any of those guys to finish. I mean, yes, any could finish wide receiver 1, but any could finish wide receiver 2, and any could finish wide receiver 7. And I just don't think people are baking that in enough. So we'll go Rome here. Really like, Eddie and Dunze. Obviously, could take Caleb. Feel a little early for me. We'll see who gets back to me. Tyler Warren would definitely be in play. This is somebody who, DJ Quill was talking with Huheems about. I'm very big on Tyler Warren at this price. Carnell Tate goes, so I actually think I'm going to go Tyler Warren. I was going to take Carnell Tate, but Tyler Warren rookie year, 112 targets, obviously saw a decline, in quarterback play when Daniel Jones went out. And, Daniel Jones could start off slow, but I think Warren in year 2 is just in a great, great situation. But no, any of those wide receivers, I've said this before. If you go through week 13 and this is points per game, so it does, factor in the game that Puka left early against the Ravens, but doesn't knock him for the game that he missed in London. I'd have to look it up exactly, but through 13 weeks last year, in terms of points per game, Puka was wide receiver 5 or 6. He ended up was wide receiver 1. Why? Because Devontae Adams gets hurt that game, and that week 14, and from there on, Puka just really dominates. So, would we be sweating Puka if he finishes wide receiver 4, 5, or 6? No, of course not. And I just think we should assume that. Especially on a touchdown site, like a half-point site like Underdog. Yes, Puka closed with a bunch of touchdowns, but again, that's because Adams was out and Stafford was just on a ridiculous run. I think that's pretty fair about Chase. And he had unreal efficiency last season, especially on deep passes, that sort of thing. Yeah, and he did have some. Now, I do think Darnold, I know a lot of people like to knock Darnold, but Darnold, one of his calling cards has always been being a great deep ball passer. Deep ball passing, even the best of them, is, it's a very relatively inefficient, number. You're not completing at a super high rate. But I will say Darnold does have that in his bag. Yeah, no, the efficiency part is very much a concern. And, so for me, the only way JSN gets there is if they're throwing the ball more. He's not going to get there in the same, if they throw the ball the same amount. He's not going to get the same target percentage, and he probably won't have the same elite efficiency. This is a story like anchor wide receiver, usually 3 running backs, so sometimes Ladd is tempting because he's this year's JSN. He very well could be. I mean, Mike McDaniel, Ladd McConkey feel like quite the match made in the fantasy lab. I need to start taking more Jaden Reed, so I'll take him here. I like Sutton more, but obviously I have a big bag of Sutton already. Take Jaden Reed and see who gets back to me. I mean, I could take a quarterback and find a way to backstack him or just enjoy an elite potential quarterback. Could take a receiver, could take a running back here. So Rico goes. Peanut saves me from my Rico addiction. Just don't love the Michael Wilson price and situation. Mahomes would be interesting, but I think I would go Godwin here. Mahomes with Kenneth Walker, and then maybe try and tack on like a Kelsey later. I think would be fun, but with Godwin just obviously opens up, didn't get Caleb, but I have Goff, Love, and Baker. Maybe I get 2 of those guys. That feels good. Stafford just for a team correlation bet. out of anyone around 1, I would fade JSN where he's going. Still, yeah, like I definitely get the JSN concern. I also think JSN he's just a really good receiver, and that's hard to ignore. Also, he has an ability to. The other thing versus him and like a Puka is, of course, JSN's a more complete receiver. He can play the slot and dominate that, but he can also play outside and showed that he can dominate there as well. And as FK said, like he, despite not having this elite speed, which everyone, that's all everyone cared about in the draft, JSN does not have that. Does not matter. JSN just gets open. So I think he is one of the best route runners in the league, and I do respect that. And not just like Puka is a great underneath intermediate route runner, but JSN is all levels of the field. Yeah, of that wide receiver tier I mentioned, like ASB obviously feels the best just because he has been super consistent, and the Lions' offense has been the most consistent. Yeah, I wouldn't have minded Pierce there for sure. That would have, been nice, but no allowance, did not let that occur. The receiver, and partly why my percentage was so low, because the first couple of weeks of Big Board, I just wasn't taking him. I took him a couple times in the second round, but I was worried about Justin Jefferson. Now I really want to be ahead of the market on him. I think Kyler can work with him and just be such a bigger asset and upside. So I need to get more Justin Jefferson. I know here I took ASB, but that is one who I want to be more over market on. So Jared Goff. So get my first stack. Potentially could take Jordan Love here coming back. Also, I'm fine taking Stafford if he falls to 112, almost a round value on, a quarterback who has the ability to throw 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. I'm not fully expecting it again, but it's out there. So I think I'll go, if I have my choice, okay, Stafford goes. I think I would have gone Love anyways. But I feel good with that. Jordan Love, now, personally, I think you can make a case, Love and Baker are very, very similar. Baker might even have more rushing upside than Love. But I don't want to be out on Love. I love the Packers offense, and maybe Love can just stay healthier this year. We've got Lo Simone here, GM. Building an elite core, though, Steve, collecting Infinity Stones. Yeah, and that's the way I like to draft. I don't like being overly, tight ends the one position I'm okay being weak on, but I don't like pushing quarterback. I don't like pushing running back. And I don't like pushing receiver. So, quick thing with my year 3 obsession with wide receivers, me personally, since we've been how impactful, anytime you get a 5-round discount to me with that talent, I just can't pass on. And that's something I wrote about early, is all these. So 2 years ago was one of the best wide receiver classes we've seen. And yet, they basically all disappointed last year, either due to injury situation or both. And so they're being overly drafted last year. This year they're being way under drafted, just massive discounts on all of them from where they went the year before, or even 2 years ago. Even some are even being drafted lower than their rookie year. And sure, there are some, like, I went zero Xavier Legette. Like, I'm not gonna bet that this guy is gonna finally turn it on. Other guys like Keon Coleman, if you want to mix them in the 18th round, sure. But the core guys, Odunze, Marvin Harrison, BTJ, Ladd McConkey, Pearsall, like, these guys have had some NFL success. Now, Pearsall, I know, has been a little different due to the various injuries, but when he's been on a football field, Pearsall's actually been pretty good. And the Mike Evans thing, I think people are just too worried about that. I think they're baking that in way too much, given the structure of the offense. Same with like BTJ. Like, yes, it did not look good. Maybe he still does end up being traded, but if he stays there, I think William Cohen's going to find a way. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to find a way. I know it was ugly to start last year, but then he got banged up and just didn't look right. I'm willing to give it another year for that talent. Same with Ladd McConkey. I think you're adding, you have the quarterback. The other issue Ladd had is, of course, losing both offense tackles. Like, the ball just had to come out way quicker, which helped Ladd a little bit, but it limited his ceiling case, because so many games, like, they just, Herbert down the stretch didn't have a lot of great games because he had no offensive line, no protection. I think I'm going to go Shard White for fourth running back here. So yeah. I mean, to the point is, all these receivers are going lower. It does feel like we're getting a discount. Are they all necessarily going to hit? Probably not, but many of them are still potential number ones or very good twos on their team. And to me, their price is not reflecting their potential upside. I wonder how Rice's Memorial Day is going. Yeah. I just look at it, at the end of the day, he's young. A lot went wrong last season. So many moving parts, more to trust talent over the situation. No, and this is, why we draft best ball, and why, it's good to draft at volume and not, especially earlier round guys, not to be like 60% on somebody, because it could be a wrong pick. But if you're right, you could get really paid off. I think I go Coker here. Him or Shakir are fine. Coker, potentially a third quarterback stack. I just want a little bit more of him. I think there's, good value potential here. The cell couldn't look better, Mike. I'm definitely going to be overweight on year 3 wide receivers overall, and I think I'm going to be pretty low on the rookies this year, Meg. Yeah. I would not be surprised if we look back at the end of the season, see how consensus viewed many of the year 3 wide receivers, and just remind us to never give up that much hope early on in young receivers' career. Well, I think especially when it's like they're still clearly going to have the role. I'm sorry, Deshaun Stribling is not threatening Ricky Pearsall. Like, I just don't see any indication of that. For as much as QJ had a solid year, like, him and Trey Harris are not threatening Ladd McConkey. Brian Thomas, look, what Parker Washington did was nice, but they're just not playing the same role. Et cetera with the Dunze. Like, yes, Luther Burden could end up as the top receiving option on that team, but that doesn't mean Dunze is necessarily a bad pick either. We have a Ben Johnson offense with Caleb Williams that is now more condensed because DJ Moore is gone. Let's not fight it. Let's bet on the guy who was the top receiver on the team for the first 6-7 weeks last year. Yeah, and even to the point, Marvin Harrison, like, got a little bit of time here. guy, his rookie year, people knocked it because it was the worst, wanted to make it out to be the worst rookie year of all time. He had almost 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. The next year, missed some games, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, I understand, Michael Wilson had a better year, but that was just at a time, unfortunately, that Marvin Harrison was banged up and missing some time. Early in the season, it was obviously more Marv, but they were throwing the ball a lot less with Kyler, not only because of Kyler Brissett, but it was because, of course, they actually had running backs at that time. So late in the year, when it was just all garbage time, and I like Michael Wilson. It's not a Michael Wilson knock. It's more just we're judging it on the wrong things. The situation changed drastically. And am I going to be shocked if Marv has 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns? No, not at all. I do obviously like having third quarterback, a different bye, get a stack. Feels good here. Daniel Jones did go. Gunnar got him. So done at quarterback. There's some receiver options here, tight end options. I'm going to get one of these guys and I will be quite happy. If I do get tight end here, I'll probably stop at 2. If I push tight end, then I'm more likely to take 3. So I think I'm going to go Trey Tucker. I know some people are way ahead of Tucker versus Naylor. I think it's more of a coin flip. I do think they gave Naylor, this was not just a 1-year deal. It's essentially a 2-year deal because he's got about $10 million guaranteed next year. And, his familiarity with Kirk Cousins, I think, is a plus. They were together in Minnesota, and just knowing the similar offensive style. Kevin O'Connell, Kubiak come from the same tree. There's going to be a lot of similar verbiage here. It's a much closer situation than obviously. And I like Trey Tucker, but Trey Tucker coming from whatever Chip Kelly had last year, and even prior to that, was not this real tree of the Shanahan tree. So I just could see Naylor being above, but I think it's a fair bet to be betting on both. To be honest, at the prices they both could pay off. Even if one's an ultimate smash, the other could be a solid value. So to me, it's obviously there's always injury risk, but at these prices, there's almost no risk to taking a pretty big stand on both. And to my point is why is Stribling going just a few picks later? This guy might be wide receiver 5 on the team. I know people think that's crazy, but they signed Christian Kirk. They have Marcus Robinson. They have some other young guys like Jordan Watkins, etc. I get that he was the top pick in the second round. I just don't think we've seen anything to show that he is a guaranteed lock to be even in 3 wide receiver sets, much less 2. And the problem is 49ers actually utilize 3 wide receiver sets, one of the fewest in the league. So even if he does beat out Christian Kirk, is this as valuable as people are making out to be? I don't know. With all the discourse about heavy personnel and added tight end use, there may be something to be said about being more selective when it comes to wide receivers than ever before. I agree with this. I think chasing targets is a great way to go. And there's certain guys who are way more locked in, and of course we need to make some upside cases, of course, but Hold on 1 second. Let me make this pick. There's a few guys here that I like. Could go Tesla, Thornoy, Hawkinson. Get Woko, Hawkinson. Yeah, especially with Tesla gone. So, I mean, you know, there's certain situations where, like the Raiders, but we're not paying for it. The Browns, as I said before, like, I don't love the Browns passing attack, but we're getting one receiver essentially 115 to 120 and the other in the 160s. Both with, you know, good rookie capital, good rookie upside. And those are guys like Boston has a much clearer path. Yes, the 49ers offense is way better, but Boston can easily be the red zone guy, easily be out there in 2 wide receiver sets. He could be wide receiver 1. I think Concepcion's more likely, but he could be wide receiver 1. And here we will. I'll take the Ted Hurst shot. I don't do it a ton, but I like this wide receiver room. Let's take an upside play late. Could have gone one of the tight ends, of course. But I do think projectable targets for wide receivers, it's tougher. Like we saw with the Ravens last year. And, you know, could very well change this year with new offense coordinator and new guys brought in. But it was you know, at the time, it looked like Bateman was a solid price, given the year that he was coming off of, former first-round pick. They paid him again. You know, it felt like that could be a great price, but he just had no volume. We saw it with Darnell Mooney. We saw it with a lot of guys last year. And again, some of these injuries played a big factor, of course. But I do think that there's just something to be said. I think more teams are going to be more multiple with their 2 and 3 receivers. Third receivers are going to be on the field less and less. So it just opens up fewer, you know, the Chargers are a great example. Like QJ, Trey Harris, you know, last year the Keenan Allen, like Ladd, it just became very much a mix. And they actually, you know, they didn't have great tight ends. They were into tight end or would use a fullback, and they still could this year. They signed a fullback. They brought in now multiple tight ends. You know, so that's why it's like, if you know who the guy is, you know, Terry McLaurin for Washington, Ladd McConkey for the Chargers, like bet on that guy, because a guy like Quentin Johnston could be a fine pick. There's potential that he's a great pick with just enough spike weeks, but honestly, he could just be a terrible pick because he's essentially splitting a role with Trey Harris. And, you know, I still think there's odds that Trey Harris could overtake him for that. And I think you just have a lot of guys in that kind of questionable situation. Yeah, you know, where like some we feel better at, you know, the Pierce, Metcalf, Reed, these guys got paid. Sutton, but like Parker Washington talked before about that. Jordan Addison, you know, they signed Jawan Jennings for a reason. They gave him some solid money. You know, does Addison lose enough 2 wide receiver sets that makes him a bit thin at that price? Not like overall, but at that price. You know, it's going to be a debate. One thing, Monra going on in every which way, but at the end of the day, availability is the best attribute, and boy, it's tough as nails. Yeah, I mean, that dude, Thanksgiving, I thought he was out for the next 3 weeks with that ankle sprain, and he was back like the next week. Like he is something else. So he takes Kaytron Allen. We'll pivot to tight end here. We'll take an Njoku share. And we'll close with a running back. But that's why I'm glad because I was going to do the Rashard White, Kaytron Allen, have a piece of the Washington backfield with these other big three. But we'll just figure another spot out. I'm going to go Malik Davis. I am in some slows also, but I don't have much Malik Davis right now. I want to improve on that just because I think there's a better path for him than Jane Blue, to be honest. But it's going to be a camp battle between him and Blue and Maffa. Seen him play versus Dallas last season right out the hamstring issue a couple days before it was wild. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it was hamstring, it was his ankle, right? I think he sprained his ankle. 36 watching, 18 likes. Let's get this man some likes. Appreciate that, Mike. People will be taking 3 tight ends as a have to, and some 4. In an 18th round, 3, 5, 6, 4 will be a thing. No, it will. I'm not really doing much for tight ends. Again, at volume, I'd rather mix those kind of things in for like a puppy. It's not as expensive as a BBM, and getting more unique can help. If you were to get to the finals or something. But I think all these things you have to do it the right way. Like, you don't take 4 tight ends if you took Brock Bowers with one of them, or even Tyler Warren. So I think being smart off of it is, it's not just the build structure is key, but it's how you got to that build structure. Trey Tucker is one of, if not my favorite wide receivers in Superflex. He spikes, he could be the one. Yeah, I just make the case that so could Naylor. But yeah, I think both are really good options where they're going. After they see what happens this year, yeah, it seems like a valid reason for why Stribling is going as high. He's a flashy rookie. Many gave up on Ricky due to health. They have no established number 2. Use high draft capital, so thinking might be that they might see something in him that we don't. That's fair. It's just I don't think the 49ers are giving up on Ricky. Like, there's no indication of that. Is my take. I think the Stribling is because Mike Evans is old. like Mike Evans could very well be a 1-year deal. I know it's 3 years on paper, but very well could be a 1-year deal. So I think that was part of it. I think they want more depth there. Literally everyone got injured last year. So those Stribling, I think he said some of his own injury issues in college, but I look at it, I want to see a path forward if I'm taking a guy even in the 160s. And when I can get Boston or these Raiders receivers who are like clear starters, and Boston should be a clear starter, for Stribling who might not be ahead of DeMarcus Robinson. Like that's a very real possibility. I just think, if Stribling was an 18th round click, I'd be clicking plenty of them. Jeremy Bernard has a much clearer path. Denzel Boston have much clearer paths than Stribling. And even if you say Stribling's in the best of those 3 offenses, and that's fair, though I think Pittsburgh's way closer than people give credit for, I just don't know. Chris Brazell I think has a better path to a role. I don't take a ton of them, but has a better path to the role than Stribling. I get Stribling went higher, but we saw this last year with Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins can beat out Xavier Hutchinson. Why do we think DeJon Sterling is going to beat out Christian Kirk and DeMarcus Robinson? We got GAB in here, maybe on the lone wolf by Puka over Chase. Yeah, I talked about it earlier. I don't think people give enough credit to the Davante Adams factor. When Adams got injured, Puka was not wide receiver 1, not wide receiver 2, not wide receiver 3. I think he's either 4, 5, or 6. I'd have to go back and double check on that. I want to say it was 5, but he closed strong. There's no question about that. Wait till people hear how many times 2 or 3 hit your lineup. What tight ends? Sorry, Gunnar. Maybe I'm missing what you're talking about here. Trey Harris is a very fun click around 20. Yeah, no, I mean, I think where Trey Harris goes, there's just enough upside potential. Christopher, if you attempted to be more selective last year, you wouldn't have ended up on Michael Wilson. Yeah, no, I mean, Michael Wilson was a good click last year because he had again, to me, it's so much about path. Like, he had a clear path to be wide receiver 2 in Arizona. Even if we didn't like Arizona's offense, and even if they stayed, the running back stayed healthy, Kyler stayed quarterback, and they were, instead of throwing 42 times a game, they were throwing 28 times a game, like should be probably expected of them this year. Michael Wilson was a great pick for around 16, 17, 18 because he had no competition, zero competition last year. And, I wouldn't have been like 30% Michael Wilson, but being like, 8 to 10, 12%, I think would have been fine. No, it's not completely predictive. But I don't think the Michael Wilson and Stribling are in the same boat at all. Like Michael Wilson was the starter. There was no number 2 starter and number 3 option on paper behind McBride and Marv, but that's my issue. And that's why the Michael Wilson versus the Raiders receivers, or Michael Wilson versus Denzel Boston, that's a much clearer comp because those guys have pretty clear paths to be starters. Thoughts on elite tight end from BBM perspective on BBM Maxern this year? If I'm going Bowers, McBride, I like relying on them for my tight end spot. Why not gamble that you can to the playoffs and then rely on them in the playoffs using extra spots on wide receiver or running back? If you get value on second tier tight ends and grab them. If not, you go unique to them with the playoff. So you're saying just taking one tight end. I know I'm a little behind here. Of those, I still think I would take a second, even if it is like super late, Greg Dulcich, Mike Gesicki, somebody, for sure. But to me, I think it only makes sense with Brock Bowers. The McBride thing, particularly from a BBM perspective, when the playoffs are so tough, we just have a real possibility that we get to the playoffs, and even though it's a fine schedule, but we're talking Carson Beck starting in the playoffs, where I think it's going to be a rookie starting for the Raiders, but it's Fernando Mendoza. And Fernando Mendoza, to me, is just a way better prospect, than Carson Beck. So either way, I do worry a little bit about only relying on a rookie quarterback getting the ball to my elite tight end. But of the two, it's Cousins to Mendoza. That's just far better than Brissett or Minshew to Carson Beck. I'm not sure it's like Michael Wilson as a counterpoint solidified. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is exactly. FK, same thing. Yeah. Appreciate that, GAB. I agree, Marvin, even though I love my 3 tight ends, like you're already making the bet at tight end 1. I think Bowers is clearly tight end 1 since you're already using higher capital. We catch up with Chad, and then we'll review the teams and then get into a Superflex draft. Chuck, yeah. No, I agree. I had a ton of Michael Wilson in 2024, so I had very little in 2025, and I was fine. Is it possible James Conner gets traded? I mean, I do feel like one of Conner or Benson should get traded. It doesn't make sense to have all 4 on them. And yes, I will show the board here from Mike. But yeah, I could see one of Conner or Benson getting traded. I mean, I prefer Conner if it opens, because I just have a much higher percentage of them. It opens up a path to usage, but I would not be surprised if one of them gets dealt. Michael Wilson's more like Nico Collins. Took him a few years to actually break out. Now we see if it's full Nico and he's a top player, flash in the pan. I definitely don't think he's full Nico. Like, I think Nico always had a bit more of a higher profile. I think Michael Wilson's a fine receiver. I think he's a quality, not like an elite number two. He's not like T. Higgins or George Pickens, who are really de facto ones, just having to be number twos because they're with some of the best receivers in the league. But I think he's a good number two receiver. I think a Nico comp is fair, mid-round pick. Took a couple years to kind of break out, for sure. But Nico just had a higher upside, is the way I'd put it. Is a non-college football guy. I can't figure out why you want to take Marv over Michael Wilson. Well, I mean, and this is to Mike Rob's point, is Michael Wilson's a little been in the league a little bit more than Marv, and of course Marv did have to deal with some injuries last year. So I just think there's some real upside still there for Marv. Good analysis, thanks. I'm mainly going Bowers, elite tight end, pairing with a big faller like Loveland or grabbing Gesicki end of the draft. Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily big like two double elite tight ends like Bowers, Loveland, just because how often is it hitting your flex, even for as good as they are? Not too often. Particularly given the players drafted around them. Like the receivers, running backs drafted around Bowers are much more likely to hit your flex. And Loveland, the receivers, running backs drafted around him are generally more likely as well. So, but I do, unless you're saying like, oh no, you said pairing, because I do like Loveland as like an elite tight end option for sure. Yeah, I guess to me, the real sweet spot is when you get to like the 140s, 150s, 160s, because we just talked about like we're taking some receivers who might not even see the field. Where if you're taking a tight end there, and we'll look at the draft in a second, they are much more projectable. So you want to take Bowers and a Hawkinson, Bowers and a Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz had 100 targets last year. That is pretty good. Pretty good. And honestly, like those tight ends taken there versus some of the receivers taken, like if you have Bowers and TJ Hawkinson, I think TJ Hawkinson's much more likely to hit your flex than a Jerry Jeudy, some of those other receivers. Now, some receivers are probably going to be, good picks in that range, but it's much more questionable. Also much bigger in Gesicki over Dulcich in this build because Gesicki's better coverage of her Bowers for a few weeks. Dulcich's potential to be 0 all year. Just might snow. And I agree, like Gesicki, he doesn't get as many snaps, but when he's out there, they're throwing the ball. He can be the clear number 3 target on that team. Well, Chase Brown gets a lot of targets, but clear number 3, like pass catcher. We've seen, these last 2 years when him and Burrow are both healthy, it's pretty good. And even last year he dropped like 3 touchdowns, which is unfortunate, not great, but he could have had a much better year last year. I know Connor restructured his contract to stay in Arizona, and I do have a good amount of exposure to him, so hoping he's moved. Yeah, I'm 100% with you, Quill. Because from his perspective, yes, he restructured to stay, but at the time I think he restructured to be like, okay, I'm the 1B, not getting Jeremiah Love in there. So let's look at these teams. I'll just go through my team quickly. Of course, Goff, Love, Bryce Young, 3 quarterbacks. Didn't pay for any like elites or top ends, but I still think it's a solid group. Walker, Kyron, Cam Scatterboot, Rashard White, Malik Davis. Went 3 running backs early, 1 mid-tier, 1 late. Feel real good about that kind of build, especially when it's even better. And this is why I do preach like different buys, because obviously if you take your first 2 running backs at the same buy, then it's like, okay, that could be a really weak, unless I really had a much better 4th, then I might have, like a 5-point game from a running back that week. That's not ideal. So I just, not that you can't do it. Like if I'd taken Josh Jacobs as a week 11 buy, like Jacobs and Kyron, it's not like the end of the world, but I do like it when your top 3 backs are spread out Amon-Ra, Odunze, Jane Reed, Chris Godwin, 4 picks in the top 100. Amon-Ra is like the anchor. Jalen Coker, Trey Tucker. These guys can be, Coker probably the number 2, Tucker the 1 or the 2. Ted Hurst, like the spike week guy to go along with Chris Godwin. It's also a bit of insurance on like Godwin as well. And then did go 3 tight ends. Could have maybe stopped at 2 with Warren and Hawkinson, but I didn't mind tacking on Njoku, especially a low fall there. I think just getting another piece of a really good offense. So you got Gunner in here, 3-6-6-3, Mahomes, Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, 3 starting quarterbacks. I think that's good, especially, this is like the perfect team to have Aaron Rodgers on, because Mahomes and Daniel Jones both coming off major injuries. Both could get off to really slow starts. Aaron Rodgers is a perfect quarterback to chaperone for them. It is a new offense for him, but it's an offense he's very well familiar with, and could be a pretty fun offense. Running back room, Travion Henderson, Tony Pollard, Jonathan Brooks, Woody Marks, Sean Tucker, Kamani Vidal. Went 6 there. Henderson's like the big spike week guy. Pollard is probably your Mr. Consistent. Jonathan Brooks is an upside play, but Woody Marks, Tucker, like they have very well built-in roles, and I think Kamani Vidal just goes too late. This is a less consistent running back room, but you can see the path, particularly if Brooks can pay off, then this running back room could turn out pretty well. And the reason you do that is, of course, 5 receivers in the top 100, including Chase London and McConkey, Mekhi Lemon, Josh Downs, and Jaron Bernard. I think that's a very, and again, spread out the buys. You're always going to have 5 of these guys available, because you will. Well, sometimes your running back will hit the flex. You are going to need the wide receivers to just pick up the slack at the flex a little bit more, and that's fine because you're not overly extended on buys. You invest a lot of early capital, and I think stocking at 6 here is a good bet. Here you go, Trey McBride, George Kittle, Michael Mayer, McBride, and this is a fair way to build Kittle. I'm not the biggest fan, but if Kittle needs half a year to really get his feet under him, Trey McBride is your guy. And then when Trey McBride, maybe, as we just talked about, has some concerns of closing with Carson Beck, well, maybe George Kittle is just fully back at it, and you still have an elite tight end. And then, of course, Michael Mayer, a bit of insurance. There's some talk of them going more 2 tight end this year. Still wonder how much that target is, but obviously is great contingent value insurance in case anything happens to Brock Bowers. And then I think Peanut was the only other guy in here. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. 3-6-7-2, Hurts, Murray, Tua. At least to start, should be 3 quarterbacks. Saquon is part of a Hurts team stack. Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle, 3 strong running backs. I feel like Brian Robinson, Emma Johnson, Alvin Kamara. Still need to wait to hear the news on Alvin Kamara, but just a real path to have 3 quality number 2 backs as well. So, kind of like Javonte is like a mid-anchor, but, like an anchor running back build. But you can definitely see the path of it being a pretty strong room. Justin Jefferson, Devonta Smith, Christian Watson, Cortland Sutton, Michael Pittman, Travis Hunter, and Christian Kirk, who talked a lot about the 49ers situation. A lot of mixed profiles here, which I think is good. A guy like Christian Watson, who could be more of a spike week guy, Cortland Sutton, a touchdown guy, Michael Pittman, probably your more consistent scoring. Might not get a lot of 20-point weeks, but could have a lot of mid to high teens. Travis Hunter, a big upside case there. And Christian Kirk just targeting a quality offense, could be the number 3. Like, this is where their number 3 receiver should be taken, not, 160. Especially, I think Kirk probably has a better path to be the number 3 receiver on the team. And then 2 tight end here, Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, totally fine with 2 tight ends there. Goddard, of course, part of a nice Philly stack you got. And then, I meant to mention Kyler and Jefferson. for that stack there as well. So yeah, that was a couple good teams drafted with me. I'm pretty sure that was it. And we'll get in. We're going to jump into a field general superflex in a second. It's crazy to think Brock Bowers out of any position could see the most targets in the league. I mean, I'd still be surprised if he ended up with the most targets, but I think he has a path to be top 5 in the league in targets for sure. It's just, can he be number 1? Like that's tough for me. Just because I also don't think the Raiders are going to throw the ball like 700 times. Like, not when you've Ashton Genty, I think they're going to be maybe middle of the pack in total targets. But could he be top 5 again? Yeah. Need taking more Bowers, but if you start Chase Bowers can still land the plane on running back. I mean, that could be one combo. It's taking a lot of Bowers in the Frenchie and Limb. Late buy is a chef's kiss. I totally agree with that. Like the Limb format, especially the Frenchie, which I didn't really do, but I did like their format. I would love to see them do that again. Love Peanuts wide receiver core. Probably didn't need Kamara there, but you know what? To me, it's a fun lotto pick because he's now falling back down. And boy, if he's not gone, he could return pretty massive value for his pick. Like he could be, not saying he's going to be better than Travis Etienne, but he could be worthy of like pick 120, like when we turn the cards over week 17. All right, let's get into a field general. I'm going to count it down. Aaron in 10 seconds. Aaron in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter. Wayne on 6. So what was it? Bowers' rookie year? I think he finished 4th or 5th in targets. So I could see about the same this year. Yeah, and the other reason I'm Chase over, I was just looking at targets. He had 185 targets last year in only 16 games. That is wild. Puka played 16 games. He had 166. So that's 20 more targets. All right, we are in here. JT's at the 1. Minsu Aiden's in the 3. Natball is at the 4. I'm at the 5. UFC Jaguars at the 6. Vaporware is at the 9. Money Mike is at the 11. Peanut Punch at the 12. Not sure is Money Mike. That's not Mike Robb, but not sure if that is someone or not. I've seen that name also, I feel like. All right, goes Josh Allen 1. Friends and family for sure. I think I will go Bijan here. Looks like a rough room. Natball he was in earlier. Nap God is Natball. And UFC Jaguar, I think his screen name is UFC Jaguar or something like that. I do see Puka. I just have a tough time taking Puka in the first round of super flex, because I do think there's more of a gap there than people are giving credit. So 2 years ago, Brock Bowers was 6 in targets, but only 1 target behind Justin Jefferson and Garrett Wilson, who were tied for 4th. And once again, Ja'Marr Chase had 175 targets. That is why I'm very bullish as Chase is the wide receiver 1 this year. Appreciate that, Mike. Gifted 1 member. Let me know who gets it. UC Jaguar. Yes, good to see you. We got Emo Cowboy in here. Good to see you, Emo. Hope you're doing well on this Memorial Day holiday. Crossface. Is that eyes for emo or? I'm going to pull up Brock Purdy for this. Mahomes' price is just a little tough for me, coming off the injury. And I love Amon-Ra, but receivers do. I don't want to start with first 2 rounds without a quarterback, especially it's one thing if you're at one of the turns. Sometimes I start the 12 spot, 2 running backs or running back receiver, but then I know I'm coming back and just hitting 2 quarterbacks. That's can kind of guarantee that in rounds 4, 3, and 4. Here, being a bit more in the middle can be a little tougher. Patrick Donovan got the member. Congratulations. Appreciate you donating, Mike. Gifting that. All right. Mahomes coming back, I think I got to consider. Saquon feels fun. I think I go Mahomes with a little bit of an ADP fall here. So here, midway through the 3rd round, first round, saw 7 quarterbacks. Second round, saw another 6. So 13 off the board. Sometimes it's more like 14, 15, but 13 off the board in the first 2 rounds. 3 more already in round 3. 4 more. In general, we see about 17 to 18 in the first 3 rounds. So it's tracking like normal. And this is the reason, yes, you could stack up, 2 running backs and an elite receiver, but then you're just left really hurting at quarterback. And it's not just hurting at quarterback, but that is a concern. But you're hurting at Superflex because these, I don't care. I honestly don't care what combo you got. You're not going to get 3 guys, because even if you took 3 running backs in a row, and even if they're all 20-point backs, which would be very impressive, that's your flex. That's not your super flex. So is the way I look at it. You're passing on just a layup super flex pick by having quality quarterbacks fit that role. And also your quarterback position would be weaker. If you're starting, if your number 1 quarterback is Baker, yes, Baker's had 2 top 10 years in recent years. But everyone else, it's not just my, Napa having Daniels and Knicks, or me having Purdy and Mahomes, like, even if Baker has more points than Mahomes, is he having more points than Purdy? And even if he does, is he having more points than both those guys combined? Probably not. Now, that's not what Money Mike did here. Money Mike did take Hurts first. I like absolutely what he did. Hurts, 2 running backs, back to Baker, perfectly fine. So Darnold goes. We're taking Darnold. I'll take Jacobs here. This could push me a little at quarterback. Don't love that they have the same bye, but I care a little bit less in Superflex, just because, one, most of the time, and maybe not because this is such a friends and family draft, but most of the time I feel like these contests end up being, instead of 2 of 12, it's more like 2 of 11, 2 of 10. So we'll see if I get a quality third quarterback. There are obviously other ways, like taking both Atlanta quarterbacks, taking both Raiders quarterbacks. So it's like having Purdy, Mahomes, and both of those guys. Browns could also be an option, though. Don't really love that. All right. I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers. There's a slim chance he would have come back. But I'm fine just taking the guy here. 3 starting quarterbacks, 3 different buys. Bryce Young is a fine option there. But I think Aaron Rodgers actually offers a little bit more. Michael McDonald. Yes, I'm in the 11th spot draft with you a couple times. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I knew I recognized the name. Money Mike here. So good to see you. All right, coming into the 6th round here. Let's see what we get. All right. I will stick at the running back spot. Take Monty here. Quality third back, 3 quarterbacks. I will catch up at receiver, but I'm not too worried about it with the need to only start 2. I'm fine just throwing volume at it. And I really think you're generally going to be fine. So I will leave it here. And see what JT does. Flowers, Henderson. And let's see what gets back to me. Conkey goes. And yeah, get Mike Evans as wide receiver 1. Totally fine with that. Pretty stack, even playoff correlation versus the Chiefs, week 16. So that could be fun, but I think we're in a good spot here. And that is why I went David Montgomery. Is this tier running back just not my favorite? Definitely love this receiver tier way more, and that's why I just wanted to get my quarterbacks get done, get my running back core, and now I can focus a bit more on receiver. So this team in T. Floyd here, 3 receivers, 4 quarterbacks, so very strong at quarterback, strong at receiver, but will need to catch up at running back if they really want to compete. I really like what Peanut did. I don't take a lot of elite tight end. Bowers is like the only one I really consider. But 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 2 just took his first 2 wide receivers, Devontae Adams with the burden, and tight end. So I think that's a good, strong core across the board, particularly if you are only going like 2 tight ends, 20-round format. Taking Ladder would have made your build, Steve. Now you just have old Evans who can be beaten out or taken out by electrical plant. I mean, I would have liked Ladd, but obviously there's the stack with Evans as well. I'm going to just take DJ Moore here. Don't know why he goes this late. And sorry to JT because Josh Allen, I believe. But yeah, I'm just going to take potentially the number 1 receiver on the Bills, which historically, when it was Steph Diggs, was consistently a top 10, top 12 receiver. Getting them this late feels very good as my number 2. Crafted pick 100, I think is fine. I'm probably leaning something else. Let me just pull up Metcalf as well. I think I will. It's another stack. I think he's, underpriced. And yeah, I feel really good now. 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 receivers that I can rely on. Metcalf, for all the criticism of him last year and the Steelers offense last year, he was a top 30 receiver, both in points per game and total points. And total points, of course, he was suspended twice, or suspended for 2 games, not suspended twice. So, I just think this year, even with Pittman, even with them adding some more weapons, I honestly think it's a rising tide type of thing. I think the offense is going to be good for him. Yeah, it does seem like more people are stacking. I do think in part because this year it is a little easier to get some combinations. Like last year was, not impossible, but it was very tough to get like Lamb and Dak or stuff like that. This year, I feel like even with the exception of Chase, like the one exception where it's impossible to get him with his quarterback. But like the rest of the elite quarterbacks, you can get their number one receiver with them fairly easily. And then if you go receiver early, you can backstack. Like you take Puka and then take a Stafford. You can take JSN and take a Darnold. So I feel like it's a little easier this year. But to me, it's like it still remains a tiebreaker. Like I very well could have taken Ladd over Evans had he been available. Yeah, let's go Sam Laporta. And with Laporta, depending on who my second tight end is, might only go 2 tight ends as well. But just don't love these running backs. Receivers, Reed I think is fine, but don't need to push it. So Cousins off the board to JT at 121. Which puts us into Carson Beck keeps moving up. But then after Carson Beck, it's like you're not taking somebody until around 17 or 18. I like some of the other guys, but it is a stack. I can stop at 2 tight ends with Laporta, Kelsey. That way I can just throw volume at likely receiver. Running back, I still think I'm fine. Wouldn't have minded having a 4th running back by this point, but I think I can still make it work pretty well. And yes, tonight, Best Ball Buttheads, Burning Rob at 9:30 Eastern, drafting a BBM 7 live. So definitely come back and check that out. Coming up at the turn, as we make the turn here, Peanut takes Aaron Jones and Michael Pittman. Again, another reason why you can wait on receivers, his picks of Sutton and Pittman feel really good. 10th and 12th rounds. So I have a few stack options here. Actually going to pull up Woody Marks to handcuff the Texans running back room. And just, I do think there's a gap after him. like Coleman, Pacheco, all these guys. I think there's a significant gap. So, I already have one stack piece for these teams. I don't need a second. If I get one, great. But it wasn't worth going to the next tier of running back to me. I think I'm easily going to get a fourth wide receiver. I missed both Worthy and Pearsall. That's fine. I'm easily going to get a fourth wide receiver. I feel like that I like. And this was, I probably shouldn't have taken the Laporta. Laporta is a fun pick, don't get me wrong, but if I'd taken another running back there, I would have probably felt better about it, where this team is structurally. But like I said, I want to mix it up. I'm going to be doing super flex at volume. Actually, we'll go Concepcion, then go for Golden. Ooh. Okay, coming into the 14th round, JT is at 3.442. Minsu is at 3.451. Napo at 3.352. I'm at 3.442. UFC Jaguar 4.441. Vaporware, not sure if they're in chat, 346. Money Mike here, 3442, just took strange. And then Peanut is at 2451 with the 13th round pick still to go. Adds Brian Robinson. I will take a fourth quarterback, but not taking one anywhere near this range right now. I think I am going to be done at 2 tight ends, so probably won't end up like 4, 6, 8, 2 is how I imagine this build ends up. I will go Emmett Johnson. And I think I'm going to get a receiver that I feel pretty good about here. And we'll just see what comes back. Sort by receiver. I can't believe Debo goes this late. But but we will take somebody else here. And that ball goes Boston. I will take Omar Cooper. I have some questions about Omar Cooper, but where he's going here, I think is fine. I think in a format where I only need 2 receivers, basically every week, getting a rookie who might not hit the lineup, be super consistent, but could have a couple spike weeks here or there. So as we see these rounds, like 14, 15, we start to see a big run on tight ends. Still a handful of options would be available in 16, 17, but that's why I'm fine, taking 2 and stopping. Don't need to invest anymore, because at this point, yes, they're pushed, maybe pushed down a little bit than where they were normally, but tight end is another position that we just run out of. And so I don't want to be using my 16th or 17th round picks to be bringing up a Greg Dulcich or something like that. I have him some in this, sure, but in general, I like being done at tight end through round 15. Yes, good to see you, Vapor. Thoughtful, meaningful Memorial Day to you all. Same to you, Vape. Paulino, good to see you. Notice a few familiar names in the room. Yeah, absolutely. Fun friends and family draft. So I'll take Katron Allen. I'm going to end up with a pretty big bag of Katron Allen. Don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but, I think given the status of the offense, he's got a real path to significant role. So these would be my top 2 guys. Don't think I want to double stack. Cleveland, taking up more, particularly in 20 rounds, only needing to start 2 receivers like Chris Bell. He could just camp on my roster for most of the season, right? So I don't mind those kind of picks as much here. All right, coming up 2 spots. I think I can go pretty locked in at receiver. No quarterback. Fields with Mahomes, this actually is the time to do it. Or Mac. Sure, let's get the 4th quarterback. This would be all I do, but handcuff Mahomes, with Fields. So, should have the Kansas City quarterback room, Aaron Rodgers and Brock Purdy. I think that can, be a fine way to approach this. But regardless, I was going to be taking a 4th quarterback no matter what. I think I'm done at running back with 6. You could make a case for 7, but not a ton left out there. And yeah, just really going to be relying on Robinson, Jacobs, Houston running back room, and then the rookies here, Evan Johnson and Katron. Okay, coming up in a few spots, we'll see if I get one of those receivers. And yeah, I'll take a Jerome Bernard. As I said before, I think he's got a very real path to the Steelers' number 3 role. Can play inside, outside. Won't be a primary 2 wide receiver set guy, but at least he has some ability to be out there for that. And I made this point. I said this a couple times on our 24-hour live stream, and a couple times since. But not only did the Steelers invest a pretty high pick in Jerome Bernard, but they were clearly willing to spend their first-round pick. They're going to take Mekhi Lemon for that slot role. This, to me, indicates, as expected, they're going to be very much a 3 wide receiver set team, probably more so than most teams out there, and they want to utilize that. They weren't going to spend this kind of capital, particularly when they were going to go first round, on a guy who was just going to sit the bench. Yeah, I think these last couple picks are just going to be receivers. I think I'll go Ridley. Jameis Winston does remain one of my favorite guys this late. For quarterback, we know, of course, the way Jackson Dart plays, and then Winston is the type of guy who can really spike. MLB Syndicate taking JJ McCarthy. I am not a big believer that McCarthy will end up being the number 2 quarterback this year. I think it ends up being Carson Wentz. I mean, would you have the chance that McCarthy could be playing if Kyler gets, the Vikings are really bad and Kyler's benched, that kind of thing? But, what are the odds that the Vikings are that bad, right? Their defense should be elite. This team won 9 games last year with McCarthy and Max Brosmer playing 12 of the 17 games. So I struggle to believe that they're going to be a 3-win team and McCarthy's playing at the end of the year. Appreciate that best ball and call. Appreciate the like. Appreciate the support. So yeah, seeing a lot of backup quarterbacks. I mean, Taylor Green, who knows what his role ends up being in Cleveland this year? Who knows what any of their quarterbacks' role is in Cleveland? But boy, if he got on the field, that'd be fun. He's one of the more athletic quarterbacks you'll find. I'll go check Besh. Another second-year guy. I think Tucker and Naylor are definitely ahead of him on the depth chart, but he probably is the most likely guy for 3 wide receiver sets. He's kind of competing with Dante Thornton, but I don't mind giving him a shot for sure. So I will look at my team. I think, and I appreciate everyone for joining. I think from a Fanspeak member standpoint, we have JT, Minsu, Natball, UFC Jaguar, and Peanut Punch. Appreciate others like Mike and Vaporware for jumping in or being part of this draft as well. It was very fun across the board. But we will review the Fanspeak members teams, of course, in 1 second. I wanted to show the board for Mike Robb, and I'm going to scroll down now real quick so we can see the entire board. So my team, 4-6-8-2. Quarterbacks, talked about that a lot. Handcuff Mahomes. Generally, I wouldn't mind waited a couple more rounds to get my fourth quarterback, but Fields with Mahomes makes a lot of sense. Bijan, Jacobs, the only downside is they had the same bye, but I think it's fine. Dave Montgomery, Woody Marks, obviously they're the same bye, same team, but handcuffing that room. Those should be the only two real viable guys there. Emmett Johnson and Katron Allen, two rookies who maybe have a path for some usage, and of course Emmett Johnson part of the team stack as well. Mike Evans, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper, Jaron Bernard. So really took some rookie swings. Calvin Ridley is kind of like the chaperone pick. A little overextended on week 9, but it's not as much of a concern with only needing two guys, most weeks. So, that, I think some people would say this is a very thin wide receiver room. I'm only needing two guys in a given week. I think the first three can cover most of that. I think Concepcion can surprise quite a bit as well. And I took some upside swings with rookies and a veteran or a young guy like Besh and a veteran like Calvin Ridley. Am I behind at receiver? Yes, but I don't think as much as people make it out to be. Evans has a clear path to being a top 10 receiver. DJ Moore could as well. And DK Metcalf, probably not top 10, but has a path to top 15, definitely top 20. And then two tight ends, Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, could end up being one of the stronger tight end rooms. I mean, these could be two of the top, 5-6 tight ends for sure. And particularly in this format, I think it's good. And of course, stacked up with Mahomes. So we'll start at the top. JT here, 5'5", 6'4". Josh Allen, Fernando Mendoza, Kirk Cousins. So took Allen, Vegas room. And then, two guys who, A, have some starting experience, and B, Joe Burrow, unfortunately, has dealt with a lot of injuries. And Joe Flacco has shown he's one of the best, hired guns out there. Gardner Minshew, he hasn't started much in recent years. But, he started and had some successful time in his careers. And, of course, Jacoby Brissett, he might not even end up being the starter right now. So I think Minshew is a fine late pick, especially when Carson Beck goes so much higher. And Minshew could just end up with more starts. And if Beck doesn't even show enough, maybe it's Minshew who's starting at the end of the year. Running back, you went 4, pretty early, and then tacked on Sean Tucker. Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Travion Henderson, Rico Dowdle. I think that's a very strong core 4. Hendo, kind of the spike week guy. Dowdle, I think pairs well with him, and then like the double anchor. And then Sean Tucker added on to just give another floor play as well. Justin Jefferson, so kind of like anchor wide receiver. Zay Flowers, Christian Watson, Wandale, Trey Tucker, Ryan Flournoy. Again, didn't need to throw a ton of volume at it because you went with Jefferson and Flowers and even Watson pretty early, only needing to start 2 of these most weeks. That feels really good. And then 4 tight ends, taking advantage of the 20th round, understanding the Kittle injury situation, Goddard, Schultz, and then tacked on Dawson Knox. I think you could have been fine just doing Kittle, Goddard, Schultz. But if you didn't feel like there was any 7th receiver worthy of taking there, I get it. So no, I think it's an interesting build. Allen in the Raiders quarterback, essentially being your starter in Superflex, and then 2 insurance guys. So, if the Raiders quarterbacks don't play well, then you will be thinner, just because they're essentially your only option for Superflex from the quarterback spot. But I could see a pretty solid year between the two. I'd be a little worried you're kind of solely reliant on a rookie end of the year for that, but overall, I think it's an interesting way to build to like handcuff a quarterback room, and not like what I did, but like handcuff 2 guys who could both get starts. Minshew in here, 4-5-8-3, Goff, Cam Ward, Geno Smith, and Cade Klubnik. So handcuffing the Jets side of it potentially, and Goff and Ward. So 3 potential teams right there. Gibbs, of course, with Goff, Genty. So kind of double anchor running back. Then you wait for Corm, Rashard White, and Mike Washington later. Obviously it's going to come down to Gibbs and Genty. Corm, and White can give some usable weeks as well, but it's those two guys, Nico, Ladd, Carnell Tate, Jaden Reed, Xavier Worthy, Darnell Mooney, Trey Harris, and Stribling. And here we see, I think Stribling goes much better ADP in Superflex. So I like what you did here, because not only is his ADP 186, but he fell, considerably here. So I think that turns out pretty well. You almost got a 35 pick ADP fall on him. And then, of course, tight end, Chigakonkwo, Rondé Gadsden, Kenyon Sadiq. And needing a third tight end with Chig and Gadsden haven't seen bye week. I'm still not sure what to make of Gadsden, to be quite honest. He's a talented guy, but it's a very much murky situation. So there was a fall there. So I get taking advantage of it. And I do think having him in 3 tight end builds is smart, because there's just enough opportunity that he's kind of like a very thin spike week guy. So we had Nat Ball in here, Jane Daniels, Bo Nix, Daniel Jones. So 3 quarterbacks early, 3 different buys, which makes it even better, I feel like. Breece Hall, Quinshon Judkins, Jalen Warren, Ray Day, and then just waiting for Ray Davis, Claiborne, and Kalen Black. Obviously you're kind of just relying on these top 3 backs. The bottom 3 are very contingent type plays. 2 could be some of the best contingent backs out there in Davis and Black, but the top 3 backs I think are fine. Not my favorite to invest in Jets and Browns, but I get it. We know they're talented guys. It's just, can the offenses sustain their ADPs is, I think, the bigger question. Amon-Ra, Terry McLaurin, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, double tapping the Colts side with Daniel Jones, of course, McLaurin with Jane Daniels as well. Romeo Doubs, Denzel Boston, Troy Franklin, Chimere Dike. I think overall that's a very solid and strong wide receiver room, even balancing on a single team, like getting the spike week guy and more the high floor guy in Downs. But just a lot of touchdown upside here with guys like Romeo Doubs and Boston. Very, very strong receiver room. Pitts, Kincaid, and Hawkinson. Probably with it's a very strong tight end room. I think UFC Jaguars next, 4-6-7-3. Burrow, Darnold is the 2 core starters. Deshaun Watson should be starting at some point, and then you're not taking both sides of the Browns, but you're taking Deshaun Watson starting there, theoretically a lot early. Carson Beck might be starting late, so you're getting essentially a third starting situation. It's just on 2 different teams. At the price, I think that's okay. Beck is moving up a little, maybe a little bit too much, but he is, one of the more live guys after, basically after Deshaun Watson to be starting in games this year. Saquon, Ramondre, RJ Harvey, handcuffed it with Jonah Coleman, Pacheco, Emmanuel Wilson. So really, it's kind of what I did. Broncos room, New England, Philly top backs, Detroit backup, Seattle, second or third back. Overall, I think you're mainly relying on Saquon, these top 3 situations, Saquon, Ramondre, and the Broncos. And that can be, totally fine. JSN, Higgins, and then Mbuka, Michael Wilson, Antonio Williams, Jerry Jeudy, Kayshon Boutte. I think the top 4 guys that's who you obviously know you're relying on. Antonio Williams, Jeudy are ATP potential values. Same Kayshon Boutte, though, very well could end up traded. But Most weeks you're mainly going to be fine with JSN and Higgins as your starters, with Mbuka probably mixed in a decent amount there as well. I do think you might need your Mbuka, Wilson to be hitting your flex a little bit more, not your super flex, your flex, and that's okay. Because you should get really good scores from JSN and Higgins. Trey McBride, Juwan Johnson, and Jake Tonjes. Tonjes, especially early on, could be playing more. The Trey McBride, you do have it, stacked with Carson Beck. So if Carson Beck's the starter, maybe you can pay it off down the stretch. I just structurally worry. I know you got like a round value discount on them, but I do structurally worry about what McBride's playoffs are going to be like. Schedule looks good, but just relying on Carson Beck is not, to me, the best option. Peanut Punch in here with a 4-6-8-2, Caleb, Dak, and Mac Jones, Marcus Mariota. So really relying on just two starters, but two quality backups with two starting quarterbacks who have a checkered injury history. So this team is really going to go how Caleb and Dak go, but those could be two top 10 offenses. So, not knocking it by any stretch. Running backs, very strong out of the gate here. Chase Brown, Cam Scadaboo, DeAndre Swift, Tech9 Aaron Jones as well. Got a round value follow there. Brian Robinson, Nicholas Singleton. Robinson should be a clear number 2. Singleton probably competing with Spears. But, as your 6th running back, I think is fine. Devontae Adams, Luther Burden, Burden stacked up, of course, as well. Parker Washington, Cortland Sutton, Michael Pittman. I mentioned this during the draft. I liked, how your receiver room came together. Waited to pick 84, just kind of kept taking them in a row here, mainly, and that's a strong top 5. I'm personally less bullish on Parker Washington, but I get it. And most weeks you're only needing 2 of these guys to hit. So that works. You still added Shaheed, Samuel, and Tesla. Receiver room for how late you waited is very, very good. And then tight end, Brock Bowers. I mentioned that during the thing. And then just tacked on Darnell Washington. I think that's a very fine way to play it. Just rely on Brock Bowers and be done with it. Darnell Washington's like the insurance policy, can give you a few points during the bye week as well, so you're not getting a stone zero. But no, I want to thank everyone for drafting with me. This was fun. I'm going to catch up with chat and then we'll get out of here. But I hope everyone has a great rest of their Memorial Day. And yes, exactly. DJ Quill, great stream, Steve. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of the holiday. Absolutely. Glad I took Lad, but next round got sniped by Dowdle, one pick before. Don't like Stripling at ADP. However, we'll take him at 219. This draft had a lot of values for me at tight end, and the 2 of those guys. I never take Gadsden, Sadiq. Gotcha. All right. Now, thanks everyone for joining the regular draft and Superflex draft. This was a lot of fun. And check out tonight the Best Ball Buttheads. We'll be back at 9:30, and I will be back tomorrow afternoon, 1 or 2 o'clock, not sure, but we'll be doing DraftKings then. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and I will catch you next time.